we not supposed to be there, and what should they expect if they should, in fact, show up there? Would you care to clarify, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Protected areas are areas that are designated by the minister to be protected areas. That is under CAP, this chapter 203 of Laws of Kenya. Why those areas are designated as protected areas, there would be a variety of reasons. Key amongst them would be for the safety of the people entering there, or the installation itself. So those areas are by law designated by Waziri, by the minister concerned, to be protected areas.
What are some of these areas for the sake of...
Mostly it would be military installations, security installations, where we've security equipment. If I take, for instance, in the police service, we have things like armories, where we keep some explosives and stuff like that, such that if we allow these places to be accessible to every other person, I think that would be a danger, not only to the organization itself, but to the person that is entering those places.
All right. For example, in the central business district of Nairobi is Harambee Avenue, right? There's also some offices there. There's Kenyatta Avenue. There's some offices there. Vigilance House, the headquarters of the Kenya Police Service, is in the CBD. Harambee House, the office where the DP and all the other people sit, and is in the CBD. Are those, do those qualify as protected areas or restricted areas?
Most of these places that you've mentioned are protected areas. Even by the look of, the kind of equipment that is found there, you've mentioned the Vigilance House, for instance. That's a protected areas. And I've said most of those areas that qualify to be protected areas generally align themselves with issues with security, equipment, and apparatus.
So to be clear, if anyone is protesting tomorrow, they're not allowed anywhere near those. But those are really big roads, you see. I mean, it's an access to a lot of, the spaces. To entirely block those places off is quite significant. Is Parliament also protected?
As far as I know, Parliament does not primarily qualify as a protected area. It's not classified because most of the times, a lot of times, events have a public gallery, for instance. But for clarity, anyone that's getting in such places like Parliament, there will be some access control. And the reason for that is obvious, that the people that are getting in, they need to be checked, in fact, for their own safety, all for the places that they are getting into. But when you look at the law, it doesn't look like it's one of the areas that qualifies to be under protected areas.
All right. As you were speaking, I could see a very burning question. Would you please introduce yourself, and who's the question for?
Him.
All right. Please, as quickly as you can, please address your question.
Okay, I'm Teresa from Kiriri University.
Karibu, Teresa.
Thank you so much for making us understand they are protected areas. But are you planning to protect us?
All right. In fact, that's a really good question. I want to shift focus onto tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay? Here's a scenario here. Yeah. A lot of the protesters claim that, not even claim, they state that the police are not there to protect them. To echo what she's asking, are you, as the police, going to protect protesters such as Teresia from Kiriri?
Teresia, I would like to answer that and say right from the outset, I said the accommodate of the structure and who we are as the police service is one of the accommodates to protect. We talk about protecting life and property. So it's very clear, and we cannot go outside of that law. So as for tomorrow, not just tomorrow, now, even the day after, be assured that the police are there to protect you. That is the law.
Mr. Nyaga, what lessons have you learned from the 2024 demonstration?
Oh yeah, there are so many lessons to
share some of them with us, please.
From the 2024. I think it's time, and this is something that we are already trying to build up. we have to have more community, that is police community partnership, for instance. We need to entrench and even revamp or even expound and expand on the meaning of, for instance, community policing. That, and I said it, that this country belongs to all of us, for instance. And the meaning to that is that I'm here in uniform, but it could have been Eric. We could change roles. It could have been any other individual person here. So one of the takeaways from last year is that, and this is something that we are trying to deliberately do, we need to start breaking barriers. We can't have rifts. We can't have some perceived barriers existing between police authorities or security agencies and the public. Because the moment we alive even have such a concept, I think it is going to be impossible, because police are there to take care of the security issues of the people. And that's our primary duty. In fact, one of the commands of the National Police Service is to make it easier for Mwananchi, to make it easier for any individual person, you know, to find us as a source of security and safety.
It's good you should say that, because one of the things that has emerged is a loss of trust. Those rifts that you're talking about, there's a loss of trust between the people and the police.
Absolutely.
For instance, this lady lost her son. Kennedy died. And if we look back at the response of the police to that killing, it's one thing. Specifically, on the subject of excessive force and accountability for things like this, for Mama Evans, for Mr. Mwadime, what has the police learned from the last protests that they're going to apply now and tomorrow?
I'll say it, and this is something that I've said from the start when I was introducing myself, that we must start doing things differently. When I speak like this, it should not just be a quote. This is something that we must believe in. We must make the community that we police believe in. Right now, there's a program that is already emerging. It's called SYLO, that is Station Youth Readers Organizations, where we've begun with a few counties. We're saying that we have to have police and community engagement at a very low level. If there's one major thing that we can pick from the events of 2024 is to try and build trust between the police and the people.
But the people are still feeling that the force is excessive. A year later, last week we had some protests. Last week we had some protests, and we still saw excessive force. In fact, some people died. There's a hawker who's fighting for his life at Kenyatta National Hospital. His family at home is distraught. The bill is rising. They have no idea how they're going to do that. We saw police using excessive force. Would you convince us that there are some lessons that have been learned on the subject of excessive force and accountability when that force has been applied? Because, and allow me to extend this, a lot of the times when the police respond, when we've seen the IG or the DIGs respond, it's because of pressure. Can we see the police coming out proactively, taking accountability for this? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Maybe just to latch on that, Mr. Nyaga, before, you're not really on the firing line, but we need to get clarity. And he's mentioned what really I was inclined to ask you. We have Boniface Kariuki right now, who is in a comatose, vegetative state. And looking at the provisions of the Constitution, which I wonder if police officers are intimately familiar with the provisions of the Constitution. When we look at Article 26, every person has the right to life. Just leave it at that. Every person has the right to life. I wonder what instructions then the police are given. Why was Boniface Kariuki aimed? You know, we have the police officers who has a cheek and the temerity to go for his head and not to maim. You say that, you know, police are acting within the law. Kindly quote for me what law was that?
Let me say this, and this should be for the clarity of the audience. This should be for the clarity of all of us. We have to face these situations. We have to take the bull by the horns. The incident that you've seen lately, and there have been multiple, I mean, it's not just one isolated.
No, we're talking about specifically about Boniface.
About Boniface.
Let's not generalize.
Yes. Let's say this, that that act, even seeing that clip, even from where I sat, that's heart-wrenching. And I say this with clarity. I say this with belief. We accept and we acknowledge that within our ranks, we've gotten it wrong. Multiple times we've gotten it wrong.
No, my question is, was there instruction to...
Absolutely not.
To kill?
Absolutely not. There are never any instruction to
But where do you get the temerity and the boldness to do it live?
This is what I was trying to explain, that an act by one of us, and there have been a couple of them, many times over, should not in any way be a reflection of the whole organization. For instance, that would not be me, for instance, right?
Sir, let me finish. If I make a mistake right now, as a news presenter, as a journalist, if I make a mistake, it means there's misinformation. If somebody is taking an order in the kitchen in a restaurant, if they make a mistake, it means there's either too much salt or too little. The damage is little. But if a police officer carrying an assault shotgun makes the mistake of aiming, I mean, there's steps to that. You cock the gun, you aim it, and you pull the trigger. 3 things. Those are 3 separate decisions that are made. And this is something we've seen in time. A year after the protests, if the police have truly learned, do you think the public is confident that tomorrow there'll be security?
I'd say that accountability is a critical thing here. The recognition that a mistake has been done, I mean, let's start from there. And then the example that you've given, again, would not be entirely representative of what we are. Entirely. That's the word that I'm using. And the other day,